This is Stephanie with Hightower Stitching. Today I want to share with you my quilt of precious memories. Here's a sampling of the quilt that I made out of 1-inch strips. It's got 2 main blocks. Sometimes I get on a guilt trip, and I had done that already with those long pieces of narrow batting. And I made those quilt as you go lap quilts before. Well, this time, it's been several months. My guilt came from those 1-inch strips that I've been saving forever. And I've made them into log cabin blocks that became pocketbooks, into pot holders, into little strips to cover the table and stuff, table toppers. And I said, well, I want to go a little bigger this time and see if I can make a dent in this pile. But I want you to know this is the pile after I've done the quilt. So I've still got some more to do to use up some of these pieces. But I want to show you a very nice quilt to make. This is the first block, and it runs up and down. The lines run up and down. And then the second block, there's a little block in the center, and those strips are going to run sideways with a border around the outside. And of course, there's always several ways to do everything in quilting. And I'll give you a few hints about the ways that I tried. And here's the first block. Now, these strips will run up and down, but for right now, I had them on my batting board. And I took, this one's got 19 inches long, because these are going to be for the big strips. And it's going to be, let's see how many strips. 14 1-inch strips. And when you sew those together, it will really shrink down. I'll show you in a second. When I got ready to sew them together, I did 2 different ways. I did 2 ways to machine chain. One of them was that I just took and I numbered the light strips. I used lights and darks. And so the light strip, well, I'd sew the first 2 together, then I'd sew the second 2 together, and on down till I had all of those sewed together. Then I went and ironed these open, and you can iron yours to the side, but again, I like to open mine. And as soon as I had those ironed, then I came back, because I had numbered the very end, then I was able to add the light strip to the next one and the next one, and that really went fast. And then from this 19-inch piece, I was able to cut 2 blocks, and that really makes it go fast. And what I did was I actually set up 2 of these 19 strips on my mat on my board here, and then I stitched those, and I didn't iron in between. I would just go back and forth from one set to the other, and all of a sudden then I'd have both strips done, and I didn't have to cut my thread. The same thing's going to happen when you do the smaller ones. You have choices there. Like for this sample, I just cut about 6 inches long, and when you get done, you're going to square it up to a 4.5-inch square. And you can, there again, you can do multiples of your 4.5-inch strip as long as you want, and sew it together and then cut it into parts. This piece on the right is where I have sewn all of the strips together and getting ready to cut them apart. To do that, I took my ruler and I lined up as many of the lines, several of the lines that match the seams in a couple of places, so that it was pretty straight. And then I just trimmed off the edge. Then, in this case, I've already marked it with a marker. I measured over my 9 inches, and I'm going to cut that, and it's going to give me a nice 9-inch block. And then I'm going to move over, and I'm going to cut the next 9-inch block, and you can see how quickly that goes. These are the dimensions for the second block. The block in the middle is 4.5 inches, and I had it go sideways. And then you can see that my background pieces, 2 3/4 times 9 inches on the top and on the bottom, and 2 3/4 by 4.5 on the right and the left. So if you cut a nice strip double strip 2 3/4 inches long, you can get several pieces out of that. And I sewed the 2 side pieces on first, the smaller ones, and then added the top and the bottom. And just as a side thought, I said, well, what if I had a set of fabric that went together that was from a collection? And so I grabbed one of those cake layers that's 10-inch squares, and I divided those into a couple of stacks. Now I put them in stacks of 7. That I found out that didn't work really well. They looked good and they cut, but here's what happened. I got them all laid out, and I went ahead and sewed them together. And when I got ready to measure them, the one on the left was just almost a perfect 9-inch square, except for cutting off the edges. And the one on the right, for some reason, it was short a whole strip, and I counted them, and both of them were 14. So always count your strips. But the truth was they were too short, so I just had to go get another one from the set and add it to the bottom to make 9 inches. You know, when you quilt, just sometimes the strangest things happen. So here's just a reminder of the first box of the Quilt of Precious Memories. And you'll say, now where did you get Precious Memories? Well, at first, I was just pulling out strips and laying them down, and one after the next, one light and one dark. And even when I started sewing together, all of a sudden it was like, you know, when you hear a sound, or you hear a song, or you smell a smell, and it reminds you of something. All of a sudden I saw a strip that was from a project I remembered. There was a piece of material that I loved when I bought it. I wondered if I had any more. And there was some strips of fabric that I thought, why did I ever buy that? Well, I finally found a place for it in here. And then it led me to think about the people that I had made the gifts for. So this is not one I'm going to give away. This is one I'm going to keep so that I can look back at it. This is block 1. And here's a reminder about block 2. Those are 2 3/4 by 9-inch and 2 3/4 by 4.5. The middle box should be 4.5, and then you sew these together. Here is the blanket, and you can see all the strips. And now I want to share with you a little bit about the sewing that I did in the strips. In the past, when I used this to make the log cabin blocks, I would actually seam each one of the seams, either hand stitch them or sew them. And I thought, well, that's not going to happen this time. And then I thought, well, I'll just run the opposite direction and make boxes. And I said, no, that's not going to happen. That's going to take forever. So I came up with a fan looking piece. And the nice thing about it, I was able to get it to go from one point to make all my rows. So, and I've got it like the first row is this red is just going out and outlining the outside with the diamond. And then I marked spots on the side equidistance, traveled up one and down, traveled up one and traveled down. And then I thought, well, I've got some open space. And so I went and found a cup, and I was able to travel up, do that piece, travel around, do that piece, do that green all the way around. And the funny thing is that sometimes when you look at it, depending on how you look at it, it actually looks like you can see hearts in it no matter which way you turn it. So for the first row, I had them all going the same direction, up and down. And then when I went to the next row, I turned the pattern around and did all of those going down. Now, I haven't come up with something for the little boxes in the middle yet. I still want to put something there. And then the other part, I just did a meandering leaf and little circles around the outside edge, and that went pretty fast. This was a great way to use some of those 1-inch strips. I was not going to throw those away, and I'm going to keep trying to come up with ways that I can do that. But this one is my Precious Memories quilt. This quilt turned out to be 45 inches by 52.5 inches. The backing was a little less than 3 yards. Thank you for watching. please hit like and subscribe. If you're new to the channel, thank you for coming here. And goodbye, people that always come. Thank you.